What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Combat and Kick It with your host, Bando. We are back to talk about some fights. You already know, that's what we do. UFC Austin was this past weekend. What a fight card. You know, whenever you get a free card that is stacked to the gills and lives up to every part of it, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Plenty of finishes on this card, plenty of exciting fights, a lot to talk about. Let's get right into it. Let's go. So like I said, UFC Austin was this past weekend. Phenomenal card, top to bottom. Now you know me, I am a main card monster when it comes to breaking things down and reviewing things. I love rocking with the main card. It's simple. You go right through it real quick, right? But there's so much that happened on this card that I can't skip over these prelims. I really can't skip over these prelims because there were some phenomenal performances. You had Veronica Macedo, also known as Veronica Hardy now. She got a decision win to open the card. Jared Gooden got an unbelievable finish coming back against Wellington Turman in the second round to get a submission over him. You had Rodolfo Bellato and Ihor Potierio went at it in an absolute slugfest where one half of it, Ihor Potierio was up. The second half of it, Rodolfo Bellato took him out with TKO with a swarm of ground and pound punches. Moving on, you had Drakkar Close, my man's gets this unbelievable slam KO. He was locked in a submission, picked him up, slammed him, gets the slam KO in the first round. Now, here is something that is so crazy and the main reason why I couldn't pass over this prelims. We didn't just get one slam KO Saturday night. We got back-to-back slam KOs because my man's Cody Brundage came through with another one in the first round just 8 seconds after. So a minute 41 seconds for Drakkar Close, a minute and 49 seconds for Cody Brundage. Both men win via KO due to a slam, getting themselves out of a submission with a slam. Unbelievable. You see it every once in a while, right? You'll see guys that will they'll slam as their defense, and sometimes it works against them. It doesn't always work in your favor. These two back to back, unbelievable. I couldn't even, I don't think you could ever predict that. And then you have Miesha Tate, who, you know, I'm not a big fan of Miesha Tate. I'm not a big fan of her style, anything like that. I'm not even going to front, not even going to fake it. I'm going to keep it G with you. And I'm being honest. I'm not that big of a fan, but she fought very, very well. She did exactly what she needed to do to get the win. The second the fight started, she met Julia Avila in the middle. Ended up pushing her towards the cage, took her down, and from that point on, she controlled every aspect of the fight. I think she controlled 3 of 5 minutes in the first 2 rounds and then got the submission 1 minute into the third. So it was there all night. Julia Avila was basically just defending submissions all night, but Miesha Tate showing that she can still run with a young crowd. Like, she's not like she's old or anything like that, but she's from like that first guard of women that came in, you know, back from the WEC days and everything like that. Or was it WEC? Yeah, I'm pretty sure women fought in WEC. Or where the fuck did women fight beforehand? Strike Force. That's where it was. Strike Force. Look at me not having my knowledge. But, you know, coming over from that, she was kind of like that first line of women. So it's surprising to see her still in the game, taking out, I'm not going to say Julia Avila is a young competitor or anything like that, but still taking out people in the game now. So that's pretty interesting. It was a good win for Miesha Tate. Moving on, like I said, main card monster. So let's get into this whole main card. My boy Puna Haley opened the card and didn't do what I needed him to do. Look, Puna Haley is a beast with the hands, man. He hits hard. His left hand packs so much. But when he was in there against Dustin Stoltzfus, first round he was landing pretty well. You know, he was finding all the openings. But then once Dustin Stoltzfus adjusted, just made a couple slight adjustments to avoid that left hand, it seemed like Puna Haley had nothing for him. He was chucking the left, hoping it was landing. He was lunging with his shots and everything like that. causing Dustin Stolfus to be able to work the ground game, take him down, get some good clinch work, put Punahele in very uncomfortable predicaments, uncomfortable situations, and ended up getting a win. Dustin Stolfus looked good. I can't take nothing away from him getting a second round submission. I thought Punahele looked good in the first round, but once he realized, like once Dustin made the adjustments that he needed to avoid the left hand, that's really all Punahele was bringing to him was the threat of the left hand. And yeah, the power is there. The power is always there. He shuts guys' lights off, and you know, if he lands, it is what it is. But he couldn't find it after a couple after that first round. He really couldn't find it. After the first 4 minutes, he didn't seem like he could find it anymore. And I like Punahele. See, I did a breakdown for this card. I had a 3-leg parlay that I built for everybody. It didn't hit, but it got close. It was very close. I had Punahele winning. Then I had Rob Font, Davidson Figueiredo going to decision, and Jalen Turner and Bobby Green under 2.5. And two out of 3 hit, but yeah, Punahele just there's different things that you can see in fighters that they need to work on. He just needs to make those proper adjustments to where if he can't land his left successfully, he's got to be able to mix it up a little bit more, because it just didn't seem like he could that night. Moving on, you had Clay Guida versus Joaquim Silva. Another man that I got to talk about, like another person I just got to talk about. The same way I was talking about Miesha Tate being in the game for a while, being the first guard of women. Clay Guida has been in the game forever, it feels like. Now, my start of watching was the mid 2000s, so I would say that 05-ish range to 09 was like my beginning of watching fights, right? Getting into it, learning about the sport, learning about fighters, and Clay Guida was there. So from day one, I have been basically following Clay Guida, and it's wild because the man has over 50 fights. He's 38 wins with 21 losses. That man has over 50 fights in MMA. It is unbelievable to see him still in there with the young guard, or if it's another one of the old guard type of guys. But it doesn't matter. To see him in there, going 3 rounds with guys, staying active, outdoing them in certain positions, landing better than them, outstriking them in certain situations. Like, it is really wild. And I talk a lot of shit about like Clay Guida and stuff like that, jokingly, but all in all, the man's got my respect, because there's the 50-something fights, man, that is impressive as can be. There's nothing I can even say. The man's always put on exciting fights when he was in there. He's never, like, obviously been that championship contender or anything like that, fighting for the belt or anything like that. But every time he's in there, it's an exciting fight, and he performs, man. And he just is one of those guys that, if he ain't fighting, it doesn't seem like he's living. And that's what he does when he's in the octagon. He's living. And he was living. Yeah, I thought he did really well against Joaquim Silva. Or I don't know if it's Joaquim Silva or Joaquim Silva. But either way, he did very well. Now, Silva did what he needed to do, right? There were certain times where he was out landing and landing with more power and more, effectiveness than Clay was. That's the thing. I think, there's not much that Clay's packing. But the fact that Clay can still stand in there for 3 rounds with a young dude like that is very impressive. So, just hats off to him. That's really my only takeaway from that fight, is just hats off to Clay Guida for still being in there till this day, still doing it. Moving on, you got Sean Brady going up against Kelvin Gastelum, or went up against Kelvin Gastelum. I'm over here trying to do a breakdown. This is the review, son. But no, Sean Brady, Kelvin Gastelum, not what I expected at all. Actually, scratch that. It was pretty much what I expected if Kelvin didn't go in there and do what Kelvin can do. Now, this was Kelvin's first fight back at 170. He looked like he was in good shape. It was good to see him back in there just in general, because he's had so many ups and downs trying to get to the fights, man, that it was just good to see him back in there in general. And in my opinion, there wasn't much that he can do. Sean Brady was controlling every aspect of the fight. Every single aspect Sean Brady was just outdoing him, right? There was a couple moments where Kelvin caught him with a shot that would step him back, but there was no follow-up. There was no answer. There was nothing else with it. Kelvin would land a heavy shot, do something with it, and then give Sean enough time to get for Sean to shoot. And that's exactly what Sean was doing. Sean was shooting, controlling, holding, working for a submission, and he ended up getting a third round. I think it was a Kimura in the third round, 1 minute in. But he was controlling that whole fight. And now it's one of those things where Kelvin was going up against middleweights, the top middleweights. Not that he was winning all these fights, but he was going up against the top middleweights. I'm assuming he probably felt as if he went down to 170, he's going to carry over some of that power. He's going to be a little stronger. But at the same time, so many ups and downs, man. And Kelvin's been in the game for a minute. That weighs in on every performance. And Sean Brady, like, just because Sean Brady's coming off a loss against Bilal doesn't mean that the man's trash. So you put him in there, you can't expect Kelvin to go in there and have this phenomenal performance, his first fight back in a minute, right? So Sean Brady did what he needed to do. So I can't take anything away from what Sean Brady did. The wrestling was there, the striking was there, the tenacity was there. He was actually working to finish the fight. He wasn't just holding. He was working to get a submission, everything like that. So Sean Brady fought a fantastic fight. Now, what's next for Kelvin Gastelum? That's a tough call. Does he stay at 170? Does he go back up? I don't know. He didn't look that big at 170. He didn't look like a middleweight that dropped back down to welterweight, if that makes any sense. Like, he did not look like he was any bigger or that there was any benefit of him being at middleweight and coming back down to welterweight. So who knows what's next for Kelvin Gastelum. There's probably plenty of options for Sean Brady. Sean Brady is calling out Ian Gary, hoping Ian wins this fight against Vicente Luque coming up soon at UFC 296. And he wants that fight if he gets past Luque. So I like that matchup. Excuse me. I like that matchup. Big contender fight, you know. We can see what happens from that. But I don't see the UFC making a fight like that, especially if Ian Gary gets a finish or a big win over Vicente Luque. They're going to skyrocket him. They're not going to focus on putting him up against Sean Brady. They like Sean Brady. Sean Brady's going to become a guy who's swirling in the top 10, but he's not going to be much of a guy that's in that top 3, top 5 with a big name status or anything like that. He's going to have to win more than Ian will have to win to get to that position. So moving on. You got Rob Font, Deiveson Figueiredo. Great performance. Great performance on Deiveson Figueiredo's part. I thought Rob Font did well, but Deiveson Figueiredo on the overall just has more ways and more keys to victory, more ways to win a fight than Rob Font did on Saturday night. And Deiveson Figueiredo was mixing it all in, man. I did not expect to see that, especially him going up to 135. He looked way smaller than Rob Font, right? He did phenomenal, man. His striking was quick. He had a little bit of pop in his punches. He was showing that he had pop in his punches. So the power definitely carried up from 125 all the way to 135. He's still holding back in his punches. He was mixing in the wrestling. He had takedowns in there. It wasn't even one of those things where it's like, oh, Rob Font didn't have that good of a performance. No, Deiveson Figueiredo had a fantastic performance. Phenomenal performance. Now, that fight I did predict to go to decision simply because I didn't feel like Figueiredo was going to at any point have the power to finish him. And I was wrong because in the third round, he clipped Rob Font with a mean one. I want to say it was a right hand. He clipped him with a mean right hand that wobbled Rob Font. And I was like, oh, shit. Is he about to finish Rob Font? Because Rob's got a pretty good chin. We've seen Rob get cracked before. Rob's got a pretty good chin. He'll stand in there with the best of them. But damn, man, Deiveson Figueiredo looked very good at 135. I'm interested to see what we can get from Figgy at 135 because he could be fun, man. He really can. Who do you put him up against? So you put him up against Rob Font, who I think Rob Font was like ranked. Let's see if it says what he's ranked here. I like how UFC, like I'm looking at a UFC fighter, and UFC isn't even the first thing that pops up. Like UFC.com isn't even the first thing that pops up. But he just beat the number 9 ranked bantamweight, right? So Rob Font was number 9 on the rankings. What's 8? Let's see. Number 9, Rob Font. Number 8, Deiveson Figueiredo. So now Deiveson Figueiredo is broken into the top 10 of the 135-pound division. Peter Yan does not have a fight. that I know of. Song Yudong fights this weekend against 15th ranked bantamweight Chris Gutierrez. You got Corey Sandhagen, currently doesn't have a fight. Henry Cejudo currently doesn't have a fight. Merab Dvalishvili does not have a fight. Aljamain Sterling does not have a fight. So you have the entire top 5 does not have a fight. Davis Figueiredo could break into this top 5 quickly if someone steps up to the plate. Now, I don't see him fighting Henry. Him and Henry trained together in the past. I can possibly see him fighting Merab, but I don't see the UFC making that fight. Aljo's probably going to go to 145, so that's not going to happen. Marlon Vera's fighting Sean O'Malley. So it leaves Petr Yan or Corey Sandhagen. I think Corey Sandhagen is still injured right now. So Petr Yan. Davis and Figueiredo, Petr Yan. That's actually not a bad matchup if you made that. If you made that as a 135-pound contender, since none of these other 135ers want to make any moves, Merab ain't doing shit. Aljo just stalled the division out. Henry's not fighting nobody. Corey is the scariest dude in the division that nobody wants to fight. Everybody's avoiding Corey Sandhagen. Yes, I said that with a straight face. I ain't lying. That's a fact. Nobody wants to fight Corey Sandhagen. Aljo don't want to fight him again. Merab ain't going to fight him. Henry Cejudo's not going to fight him. Corey is going to wait for Sean O'Malley, and I guarantee you Sean O'Malley does everything he can to avoid that fight. If Marlon Vera somehow gets past Sean O'Malley, then Marlon and Corey can happen. You make that happen, but I think Corey, regardless, deserves that next title shot. But that man is going to be the most avoided man possible. Now, say you don't put Davis and Figueiredo in that top 5. Who do you fight him up against in the top 10, top 15? You have, at that point, Dominic Cruz, which is still ranked 10. That's wild. Pedro Munoz is 11th. Ricky Simone's 12. Jonathan Martinez, 13. Umar Nurmagomedov is 14, and Chris Gutierrez is 15, but Chris and Song Yadong fight this weekend. So, I think Umar is out because they're going to try to take Umar from that 14 position and try to get him somewhere where Petr Yan is. So, you can possibly even expect the Umar Nurmagomedov versus Petr Yan fight one day. You got Jonathan Martinez, who is an exciting fight. Just came off of a big win over... who did Jonathan Martinez just beat? Adrian Yanez just kicked the life out of his legs. Absolutely kicked the life out of his legs. So you have that possibility for an exciting fight. Ricky Simone's always putting on potential bangers. You already know Pedro Munoz is always putting on bangers. So you have options. But I think you want to elevate Davis and Figueiredo. Give him Petr Yan. I think that's the fight that makes sense. So, moving on from that. Let's see. Let's get back to where we're at. We're on to the co-main now, right? Jalen Turner, Bobby Green. It was a quick one. Fight starts off, they meet in the middle, striking. Jalen's landing kicks, trying to establish the distance. One of the key things that I thought Jalen needed to do was fight at range, control at range, and just be better altogether when it comes to the striking. Stay cleaner, stay crisper than Bobby. Now, he was throwing some shots at Bobby. He was landing a couple, kind of missing a couple. Bobby was talking to him. Bobby was chirping, doing what Bobby does. That's what Bobby does, man. Bobby talks his shit. Everybody knows that about Bobby Green, right? Jalen ends up landing a beautiful, beautiful right hand that catches Bobby right on the temple, drops him down, or wobbles him, lands another one, drops him. When he dropped, okay, look, we already know where I'm going with this because it's been enough time. There's been enough days between the fight and now for you guys to know where I'm going with this. That was one of the worst stoppages I've seen in a fucking minute. That shit was whack. Now the ref, I'll give the ref one thing. He did just completely take accountability for it and said, yeah, no, that was bad. It was bad. He understands. Don't go at the fighters. Go come at me type of thing. Everybody, I know I fucked up. I respect that. I give him props for that. We've seen that that ref in there multiple times. I can't think of his name right at this second, but we've seen him in there multiple times. Doesn't usually make those types of mistakes. But Bobby was clearly out on his way down. After the second shot landed, Bobby hit the ground. Bobby was out. Jalen landed some follow-up shots. It should have been right there. Stop. But Jalen landed multiple follow-up shots that did not need to happen. Bobby was on his stomach, flattened out on his stomach. And yeah, you could say that it looked like Bobby was moving, but that is literally just Bobby coming to, going to sleep, coming to, going to sleep. Like literally, he was not intelligently defending himself in that position. And it was a bad stoppage. It was a real bad stoppage. Now, time has passed for it, so I'm not going crazy on it. I'm not, oh, that fucking ref needs to be fired, any of that stuff. But in the moment, I was like, holy shit, that's one of the worst stoppages I've ever seen. That was bad. But either way, not to take away from the performance of Jalen Turner. Jalen Turner did his thing, gets the call on short notice, comes in, beats Bobby Green. Not just beats Bobby Green, but gets him out of there in the first round with a KO. Beautiful win for Jalen Turner. That's another guy we can talk about. What's next for Jalen Turner? You got to elevate him, right? But you don't know how to elevate him because he lost to Dan Hooker. He comes and takes this fight on short notice against who Dan Hooker should have been fighting and gets a win. What do? What position do you put him in? Who do you put him up against? What's a good matchup? It's very tough when you're looking at the lightweight division because it's so stacked. And then when you're looking at the lightweight division, you're also looking at the matchups that can be made stylistically. They're kind of strange. They're strange. They're tough matchups to make, right? You got a dude who's 6'3", 6'2", 6'2", 6'3", in Jalen Turner. Like, how do you match him up with somebody? Right, you got to think of your next matchup. Obviously, you have a lot of wrestlers in the division. Do you put him up against a wrestler? That's tough. I think when Rafael Fiziev comes back, that's a good fight. You do Jalen Turner, ranked 10, go up against Fiziev, ranked 8. You're going to give Beneil some time off. You don't want to give Beneil another fight. Matus, who knows what Matus is doing right now. Matus is probably sitting waiting for a fight. But you got guys like Dustin and Justin who aren't going to take that fight. Dustin's not going to take anything that's not a money fight. And Justin's not going to take anything that's not a championship fight. The only person that would possibly take that fight is Charles. But Charles should be next up in line in terms of, like, you know, the UFC's idea of who to make. I don't think they were thinking of Justin. I think they were talking about Charles being the next fight. You never know. It could be Justin. But if Charles isn't the next fight, you know, Justin ends up being the next fight, there's a very, man, lightweight's strange. Very strange. You still got Rafael Dos Anjos holding the 11th rank, which confuses me. Moicano wants to fight Jalen Turner. You can do that. That's 10 and 13. That could be an exciting fight. If you open a main card with that or something like that, that's a pretty good fight. Drew Dober's ranked 15th, but that wouldn't be a bad matchup. Drew Dober and Jalen Turner. But if you're trying to elevate Jalen Turner, the only person to look at is Fiziev. He already fought Matus, lost to Matus in a very close decision. You give him Fiziev. Keep it on a striking matchup. Keep it on the feet. That'd be pretty exciting. But lightweight is always tough to make a matchup, man. It is always tough to make a matchup. Which leads me to the next fight, the main event. Beneil Dariush gets KO'd by Arman Tsarukyan. And it was KO'd bad, man. He got sparked. Arman went to throw this knee. He threw a nice combination, came in, grabbed for the clinch, just misses the knee. Like, literally, this is Beneil's face, this is the knee. So Beneil just got out the way of it, and in the same motion, Arman came over the top of the right hand, caught him, beautiful, knocked Beneil out. What's next for Beneil? That's a tough call. But what's next for Arman? Who do you put him up against? He's ranked 4. Dustin's not going to take the fight. Justin's not going to take the fight. Only person you put him up against is Charles Oliveira. If Charles doesn't get the number one, he's not the number one contender, doesn't get the championship matchup, him and Arman could be a very good, very exciting fight. Because I don't see anybody else taking that fight against Arman. You got Michael Chandler sitting at 5, basically just holding a spot while waiting for Conor McGregor to come back to get that fight. There's almost no point. We could have seen Michael Chandler fight probably 2 times this year if there was no hold up with any of the Conor McGregor shit. So, kind of pointless to have him holding that position. Obviously, Beneil dropped down 3 spots. Arman jumped up 4 spots. So, I don't know. Arman jumped over Fiziev. You could run that back with Matus, but I don't think anybody really wants to see that. Who really cares to see that? I think we can see that later on when there's something more on the line for that. But if Charles isn't next for the title and Justin isn't next for the title, I would hate to say that the only other person to put in that position could be Arman. And that would be a super quick elevation, getting them straight to the title. Like, straight to the title shot. That's interesting. Because the rankings of 155 just. You got Charles Oliveira. So you got Islamist champion Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, Arman Sarukian, Michael Chandler, Matushka Emrat, Benil Dariush, Rafael Fiziev, Dan Hooker, Jalen Turner, RDA, Benoit Saint Denis, Hanato Moicano, Bobby Green, and Drew Dober. That's a stacked ass division, man. That is a stacked ass division. So I don't know what's next for any 155er, but I am going to be playing Matchmaker in my next episode, so make sure to tune into the next episode because we're playing Matchmaker for all things UFC Austin and probably going to be breaking down slightly the Song Yadong, Chris Gutierrez, just the main event. So make sure you tune into the next episode because that's it for this one. So I'll catch you on the next episode. I appreciate you as always for listening. I know I haven't been very active, but I got more videos coming soon. So stay tuned. Make sure to hit that bell notification button if you enjoyed the video. You know, do like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Your boy's out. Talk to you later. Peace.